Let's get into how HS2 is a complete Ponzi scheme, which it is. It's a scam. For those who don't know, HS2 is something that's been going on forever at this point. Oh dear. Just technical things. Here we go. Yeah, for those who don't know, HS2, you probably do know, it's probably come through and ravaged your town centre just like it did to mine. But for those who don't know, HS2 is Britain's new zero. It's not new. It's not new. It's been at least a decade old, if not older than that at this point. I think it was maybe the late 2000s, early 2010s when this was originally announced. It's a high-speed railway looking to improve the current infrastructure that we have in the UK, where we've got terrible train services that are constantly late, constantly being delayed for one reason or another, and they don't work. And instead of saying, let's take the things that don't work in our current existing rail infrastructure and make it so that they do work, and you can't blame it all on pure privatization because they are run by the government.
It's true.
They've said, let's do this stupid thing and waste everybody's money, because that's what the governments are good at. They go, can we improve something that already doesn't work? No, let's build something else that also won't work, but we'll spend lots and lots and lots of money that we can distribute to all of the fashionable causes and NGOs that we like in a more discreet way than if we just announced on the government website that we're going to be giving all of this money. And once again, like I said at the beginning, you probably already know that it's a scam. It's a scheme to throw away taxpayer money. But do you know just how bad it is? Anyway, I'll just continue just describing what it is first for anybody who doesn't know. So it's the UK's flagship transport levelling up project. Are we all tired of levelling up yet? I am.
Build Back Better.
Yeah, oh, God. It is the biggest rail investment ever made in the north of England and is Europe's largest infrastructure project. Now, once again, I actually like the idea of there being good rail infrastructure in the UK. We're a very small country, and having rail infrastructure and good working public transport is a very good thing. Not just for climate initiatives or anything else the government wants. It could just work better and be more convenient for people. Because I know, for one, that this country is overcrowded as all hell, and trying to drive up and down the country, going down the M5 and M6 is an absolute nightmare because it will just pile up with cars. You will be in an eternal traffic jam all the way up. So if you have better rail links that actually work for people, that's a good thing. I think that's something that's sensible for everybody. They also say here, major civil engineering works are now underway with £23 billion contracted into the supply chain and around 350 active sites between the West Midlands and London, supporting almost 30,000 jobs, delivering benefits before a single train has started running. And you can guess, are those 30,000 jobs, are they all going to be labourers on the ground doing productive, useful things? No, obviously they're not. The new high-speed rail line will run between the northwest and southeast, stopping at Manchester, Birmingham, and London. Trains continuing in the existing network to Scotland and elsewhere. In total, over 250 miles of new high-speed line planned across the country, including HS2 Phase 1, linking Birmingham, London, and the West Midlands. 2A, extending the line to Crewe, where I'm from. I've mentioned it a number of times, but I just want to point out there that Crewe has been absolutely ravaged by this, because all the council has decided to do, ever since it was announced that it was going to be running through Crewe, is change the town to be able to facilitate all of the new investment and the new population that are expecting to come in, who will basically be people who come to live in Crewe, who are going to be commuting to London. That's been the expectation that I've always been hearing about. And to do that, they have destroyed the town centre, destroyed business. They've destroyed the last remaining music venue that they had there to build a car park that's right next to the train stations for people to, we're going to have so many more people using the train here, even though we're already a massive train network, right? So we'll just tear this down, build a car park. It's not even a bleed car park now. They just didn't do it. So now our music venues are just gone. Thank you very much for that. And now I'm hearing rumours that it might not actually go through Crewe after all, because given how useless this whole thing is, I'll be surprised if they even get 100 miles of it built. Phase 2B, completing the line to Manchester, and it'll just be going through the places that we've said. They're also building tunnels for it. Massive underground tunnels, none of which, I reckon, will be structurally secure.
No.
Personally, I don't trust that they just won't cave in the centre of the country building these things. The new high-speed rail tunnels between London and Crewe will form part of the HS2 network. Total of 65 miles of tunnel will be created between London and the West Midlands. 10 giant tunnel boring machines will be used in 5 separate tunnel drives to dig HS2's twin bore tunnels. In total, 130 million tons of earth will be excavated because we care so much about the environment in this country. Enough to fill Wembley Stadium 15 times. I would suggest perhaps enough to cover the entirety of London, but they keep ignoring my phone calls. HS2's Chiltern Tunnel will be 10 miles long and run at depths of up to 90 meters, making it the deepest point on the route. So that's the projections. That's what they're all saying. And by the end of this, you'll be angry with the government, angrier with the government, as always. And on that, I'd like to point out that Josh has recently done some heavyweight interviewing of a former heavyweight champ, David Nino Rodriguez, talking to him about boxing, his move to political podcasting, religion, and the current state of the United States. So you should watch that if you've got any interest in the other videos that we put out on the website, which are all excellent quality, and you absolutely should, because I think this was relevant because Rishi Sunak, you weren't in charge of the government when HS2 was announced. You've not been in charge of the government for most of the time that it's been going on. But you are the face and head of the government, probably, right now. As such, I want to officially challenge you to a boxing match.
Got it first.
For control of the country. I win, I'm the new head of the Tory party. You win, life goes on, really. Nothing really.
Nothing, no benefits.
I mean, what can you want from me? What do I have to offer you?
He takes control of crew.
And can't do a worse job than the local council already has, to be honest. So I understand I'm somewhat larger than you, somewhat heavier than you. I have a much longer reach than you. I doubt you could bench even the weight of 120 kilogram bar. You certainly couldn't deadlift your own body weight. So I'm going to offer you this deal. I will do it with one arm tied behind my back.
Wow.
So that should, it probably won't even the odds, but still, it'll help you a little bit. And we can have 1 year to prepare for that. So I look forward to hearing that you've accepted my invitation. And hopefully I'll see you in the ring this time next year. Anyway, what spurred me on to do this segment, to look into all of this, was this incredible tweet thread that I was made aware of by our wonderful editor, Rory, by a man going under the name of Kev. In his little profile, you can see there that he has a picture of the former Singapore leader, whose name I've forgotten, but who is an absolute man of steel, someone to be looked upon as a hero for the people of Singapore. It goes under @KevinF567. So if this is at all indicative of the content that he puts out on Twitter often, then you should follow him because it's very, very interesting and very, very useful. And he just starts this off by saying, HS2 tunneling costs are actually insane. You want to know where your money is going? And, well, yes, we do. So let's find out, shall we? So I'll just go through this tweet thread and another one that he's done, and we can see just what they're doing with the money. So this work that he's going over is, I think it's a 12-page document breaking down all of the tunneling costs of HS2. And it's not looking good. It's not looking good. So to start, they've got the tunnel boring machines, which you need 2 of, because as he says, you can't just turn it around at the other end. And each of those is about £16 million each. Okay. And then you've got slurry machines, or 2, to take away all of the tunneling material. Not unreasonable fixed costs, according to Kev. I'm not as up to date with how much all of this should cost as I imagine he is, but they're saying £45 million each for these machines. So we're already really reaching the level of hundreds of millions of pounds, but we've got a budget of billions that we can draw from, which we've already spent
magic
billions
money
on.
tree that we were always told.
Yeah, just think of it like this, though. Like when you start to get into the realm of billions, it's difficult enough for somebody to conceptualize what a million of anything is. Like, try and picture 1 million people in your head, and you probably have a lot of difficulty doing that just because it's so outside of your frame of reference. Then imagine 1 billion, and then imagine a few extra billion on top of that. Imagine 23 billion. Imagine over 100 billion. And you're just getting into the realm where, for most people, that might as well sound like magic numbers.
Yeah.
Because it just...
Graham numbers.
Yeah. I mean, you might as well just say mixillion. Just come up with any...
Oh, yes. Yeah, I can picture that. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Just come up with any sort of random syllable or vowel noise and add billion at the end of it. And you're in the same realm here, because it's absolutely ridiculous how the government manages to find this money. Well, it's actually, no, it isn't, because they just tax you for it and then spend all of this money. It's impressive how much they can spend money, because he says this is where it goes mental. And we've got this part of the document here that says time-related costs £1.1 million per week, which what are these costs? Labour and management and supervision, among other things. They've got hiring, plant and equipment, servicing the site, security, cleaning, and maintenance costs. So a lot of that, he's got saying,
Oh, wow.
he's saying here, are how many workers would that get you? 50k a worker costs £1,000 a week, so that would get you about 1,100 workers. Well, I think it would probably be actually 52k a worker, but
Something
still.
like that, yeah.
So you could get 1,100 workers per week. Why do you need 1,000 workers to dig a hole? HS2 doesn't explain. Do you reckon all of those people who are working are actually going to be working? No. I'm picturing, you've seen that picture of the single man digging
a hole on
and
the
there's
beach.
the line
Yeah.
of managers with clipboards there saying, "Sorry, Gary, we've decided we have to make cuts, so you're going to have to go." That's what it actually will be, because these whole things are bureaucratic nightmares and just schemes so that you can get large management companies in who you can just pay because they're your friends, and you want to pay your friends to do the thing that they do, which is basically nothing, certainly nothing useful for the country, as much as a project like HS2, if it actually did if it actually is going to do what it's promising to deliver on, would be useful. And then we've got, bear in mind, these aren't navies. They've already expensed the F out of automated tunnel boring machines that do all of the work. So you probably only need maybe a couple of dozen people to man those, not a few thousand.
Got you.
Unless you've got maybe a couple of hundred managers on site at all times to make sure that nobody's saying anything offensive to hurt each other's feelings.
It's true. HR departments and all that.
Yes, HR departments filled with women who are only there to tone police the actually useful people on the sites. Although that's just what I've heard from my friends who actually work in construction. Yeah, I mean, it just says what, like, this is going to look like you drive past roadworks on the motorway all the time, right? How often though are there anybody actually there instead of there just being a load of cones blocking you?
80 to 90% of the time, from when I see it,
Mhm.
not a lot.
Mhm.
Not a lot. And if there is, there's always someone sitting in a van on his phone.
Of
Usually.
course.
Yeah, there's always that.
Of course. But then he carries on and says, "Oh, but wait, that doesn't actually include labour cost of tunnel construction. There are some things that will cost real money here, like the concrete lining, but the breakdown of the rest is non-existent." So that's the interesting thing. This is 12 pages where they just say, this is what it's going to cost in massive lump sums of money without breaking it down into any further detail. Probably because it's nice to just say this is going to cost a nebulous, ridiculous sum of money that you can't even conceptualize with no breakdowns, because people would probably get annoyed if you said, well, most of it's probably going to go into some HR company's back pocket.
Yeah.
This ends up costing £25,000 per metre, which is £175 million for 7 kilometres. In the end, the cost of a 7-kilometre tunnel is £500 million for all of this taken into account. The two biggest items being the nebulous time-related costs and tunnel construction costs. How can tunnel construction be a line item on a tunnel construction costs breakdown?
Good question.
That's an excellent question. It is quite spectacular. He just says that the way that we're going about this, why we've been able to say that this is what it will cost, is that they've taken similar projects that have gone on across the EU and said, well, actually, if you look at the most expensive and least expensive ones, we're somewhere in the middle here on this graph. Why aren't we trying to emulate the least expensive ones? Why aren't we trying to see why they were so efficient with their money and able to be cost effective? Why are we just going, well, as long as we're not literally bankrupting the country, I mean, they might be, but as long as we're not doing it in comparison to these other countries, then it'll be absolutely fine. It's so stupid.
What sort of misses me is when people that are environmentalists actually turn around and say, yeah, actually, I agree with the construction of HS2. And
we should dig massive tunnels under the country
and just rip out trees for miles and miles on end. And I think I saw a video not so long ago of Leilani Dowding, who was next to like a construction site of HS2, and it showed the damage that it's done already, and obviously it's not even been built properly yet. So you've got areas which have literally been dug up and just left.
Yep.
And it's almost criminal.
It's like the towns that it goes through. The towns will absolutely destroy themselves so they can regenerate themselves to be right for London businessmen to live in while they commute on their way on their HS2 back to London every single day. And then it doesn't get done. It doesn't get done, and the town is just a complete shell of itself. It's
Yeah.
awful to see. But where's the actual money going? Because we know that all of those big nebulous sums of money are big nebulous sums of money. You don't know where they're going. They don't want you to know where they're going. So where are they actually going? Well, see how they're spending their
Ah,
time writing this up. So, as I said, the report on tunneling costs was 12 pages. Kev points out here that the annual report on diversity was instead 52 pages. So, that's showing where the priorities are going here. And let's go into this. And this is like everything I read before is like, well, you could probably try and hand wave it away by going, well, you don't know how much all of this is going to cost. So, they might just be being vague because they want to account for the fact that they could save money, they could spend more money. They don't want to be 100% on it right now, which is still a bit of an excuse. But this is where I just gave up, if I'm honest. So he says they prepared this handy report on how they're being racist to white people and sexist to men, not to mention some of the money that they're wasting. And here are some of the highlights that Kev has drawn from it. So starting off, they have a measure of how many white people they have, with the fewer the better. Their current target is to have less than 77% white people. Why? That's a completely arbitrary target, unless you want to say, I think the population of white British in the UK now is about 74%.
something like that.
So what, they've just taken that and added 3% on it for some reason as their target to hit? I don't know why. Just because of the fact that that's the percentage of white British people in the UK at the moment doesn't mean that that's going to be the percentage of competent people qualified to do this work so far. But, let's be completely arbitrary and put this incredibly expensive infrastructure project into the hands of people who've only been hired for diversity points. That sounds like a great idea. Then let's let them dig tunnels under the ground. What could go wrong? Which they fell short of last year, but they achieved this year with 76%. Yes,
Yes.
that's right. Replace those white workers. Genius. Okay. All right. It's really funny to me, he says here, that they print evidence that whites make better candidates by accident. Despite all the interviewers being trained in inclusive recruitment techniques and how to address unconscious bias, these pesky native Brits keep getting through. And we can see here on this, it's the EDI trends in our recruitment. So the applications are getting loads from ethnic minority backgrounds. They shortlist more of them, but hire less of them overall.
Ah,
But they have a solution for this. They have a solution, which is they're going to remove all ethnic and name data from the CVs
right.
in the hope that more ethnic minorities will get through. You would imagine that seeing as more of them are getting interviews and shortlisted in the first place, that would be the gateway to make sure that like unconscious bias
Hmm.
wouldn't be a factor. But no, apparently you're going to have to remove all of that through. And then Kev is potentially suggesting that that might mean that more white candidates get through, at which point they will immediately scrap it.
Right.
And
Makes
we,
sense.
we've got here, if I carry on, talk about, where is it? They've got reverse mentoring here. So he calls this woke communism, which is a great little term for it. So this is, if we read here, each year we run a structured reverse mentoring program where we pair all our SLT members with a reverse mentor. The volunteer reverse mentors and SLT members are matched by the legacy team. So SLT, from what I looked up, means speech and language therapy.
Okay.
Basically means speech coaches on these sites, because presumably they're hiring so many minorities that they don't know how to speak English that well, which means they can have difficulty communicating. So what instead they're doing is they're taking the people who are supposed to coach these people in how to get them to communicate better with the higher ups. They're getting those people to teach the SLT people how to speak broken English, so that the higher ups can be taught better on how to speak them real good. Yeah,
Right.
very strange.
That's
This seems like a sensible use of my tax money.
yeah.
Yes.
That's terrible.
They have diversity awards from a company called The Clear Company, who, don't worry, they have a podcast on diversity. So very glad to hear that. He says they appear to be a two-bit operation, but I mean, all of these companies are. You do just pay them to be lectured about why you're too racist and here's how you can give me more money. And the more money you give me, the less racist you are. But you'll never not be absolutely not racist, so you can never stop giving me money about it. They helpfully print this chart to show how out of whack they are with the rest of the industry. Women are common in management roles, so they'll likely increase their percentage of women by having lots of unnecessary management, once again, this can only be anecdotal, the example that I'm going to give here, but I know lots of people who work on construction and labouring sites, and they say that it's basically on the ground, the blue collar workers are all men,
Mhm.
and it's all the women they're bringing in are just being put straight into management roles, where the only
Right.
thing that they do is basically HR work, where they tell people off for not being nice enough to one another, despite the fact the kind of banter you get on these
Of
sites
course.
is very blokish. That is how
Yes.
you're nice to one another. Throwing slurs and insults and the most harsh name calling you've ever seen at one another is how blue collars
Of
are
course.
nice to one another.
It's how most men work. It's to do with, the threshold of getting to know one another.
Yeah, look at this. So we've got women are the blue column, ethnic minority are the pink column, disabled are the green column. So I feel like that would be a massive impediment if you're working on construction sites. So they must be in management positions as well. So you can see that they're
So is that right in saying there are more
massively
disabled?
ahead. HS2 is massively ahead of all of these because it is basically a government Ponzi scheme to give money to their preferred minorities.
Am I right? Am I reading this right? So there are more disabled people working as engineers for this diversity sector than there are for non-whites. Am I reading that correct?
It appears so, but then again, I don't know which one receives priority if you're putting it down on a graph. So they
Got
might
you.
also be disabled ethnic minorities.
Right.
I don't
Oh
know if
yeah,
they're
that's
counted. I don't know if
yeah.
they're counted in both or counted separately. I wouldn't be able to say for certain. I would imagine that these people are probably also in management, either that or if you're in engineering, perhaps in the design stages of it, where
Oh,
you
got
don't
you.
have to do any manual work on it. You maybe
Okay.
just have to do, draft up blueprints of things. I've not
Right.
worked in these industries myself, so I'm sorry if my knowledge is somewhat lacking here. They also count how many gay people there are. Very
Why?
strange. It just,
Why?
well, you know,
Why? What's
you
the
know.
point of this? I
You
don't
don't know the point of
understand.
it?
No.
You know the point of it.
Sorry, I'm such a bigot. I just
Yeah.
I don't
Uh,
get the point of it all.
they've got case studies on people. Nikki French, this person. You got their contractors are apparently forced to be racist too. They have set contractual performance measures that cover policies and procedures, recruitment, workforce monitoring and reporting, supplier diversity training, and a requirement to obtain externally verified EDI standards. And look at this, they have all of the figures for it. 38% of the HS2 limited workforce is female. No wonder it's so expensive. 40% of the leadership is female, and 31% of the senior leadership team. Oh, sorry, I misread it earlier. So not the SLT wasn't speech and language therapy. It was the senior leadership team.
Ah,
Once again, basically the same thing though. They're getting reverse mentoring from the people that they've hired who don't know how to communicate properly on the sites to tell them how they can better manage them. Seems very, very backwards way of doing it. But they're female as well. 20% of our tier one supply chain workforce has ethnic minority background, which is above the industry average. I hope as you've been watching this, you've been asking in your head the same question over and over again. Because I've been asking this question, which is how does this construct train tracks?
yeah.
How does this dig tunnels?
It's kind of
How does this
yeah.
help? Imagine that stone toss meme of how will this help us sell burgers?
Yeah, that's it. It's
That
literally
over and
that.
over again. How will this build a railway? This is a good question. This is an excellent
Maybe it's
question.
one big gloat
Mm.
to all other industries.
Maybe it's not meant to build a railway for its first priority. Maybe it's meant to just give money to people like Mohammed Azim, who is another case study saying, I've experienced firsthand on many site based construction offices spaces made available for daily prayers, ablution facilities, and halal food options. How does this help build
How
the
does this
trains?
help? Yeah.
How does this help the trains run on time?
Yeah.
But they also have wonderful diverse events like Stephen Lawrence Day.
An
No
International Drag Day.
and International Drag Day. Yes. They, of course, celebrate the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and
Oh,
Transphobia.
this is just getting
Bi
just
Visibility Week.
Oh, brilliant.
All right. Trans Awareness
What's
Week.
Ace Awareness Week? Is Ace a
Tell us in the
person?
comments. Maybe. Maybe he's just a really
Just
nice
one
guy.
bloke at the office.
He's a really nice guy. You have to go in and give him a high five. Good job, Ace. Oh, cheers, lad.
He's the straight white male, so you have to make
Yeah.
him aware.
Kev again pointing out that they've missed the coronation and Christmas, but why would you expect it to be caring about those sorts of things when they've got Mohammed's feelings to worry about here?
No Easter, I see.
No, no.
No?
They've got Diwali though, so that's
Oh, we've got.
right.
Oh, right.
And Ramadan.
Ah, got you.
They've got 30 domestic abuse champions, so I don't know why you'd want to celebrate that.
Yeah.
And here's the biggest waste of money. This was the most spectacular. I said before we started this that even if you gave me your wildest guess, you wouldn't be able to imagine. You wouldn't be able to guess this. And like, look at this, people. Right. So, in fact, I'm going to scroll up so you don't spoil it. I'm going to ask you this question.
Okay.
Right. You are working for a prestigious government contract.
Okay.
You've been told that you are in charge of signage that's going to be posted all over this, and to make sure that it is accessible for disabled people and
Sure.
easy to read for them. How do you do this?
That is a great question. Well, if I was to make sure that disabled people are able to read and communicate what they're being given, you would do it in a variety of ways depending on the disability. You've got Braille comes to mind.
Even simpler than that,
Okay.
right? If you wanted
overcomplicating
to come up with a practical example to show them, how would you do that? Just to test it. You get two disabled guys in, and you need to test to see if the thing that you've come up with works. How would you do that?
Show them.
With what? With what? Like a practical example. Maybe you've got a 50 quid sign that you've mocked up yourself in that style, and you just hand it to them.
Yeah.
And show that to them from various distances and say, is this okay?
Yeah.
Can you read this?
Yeah.
That's how a sane, normal person who
Yes.
doesn't want to spend billions of taxpayers' money.
There's me thinking Braille. Sorry.
Yeah, billions of pounds of taxpayer money on nothing in particular. Obviously, you're not anywhere near as ingenious or intuitive as the HS2 wardens are.
No.
Just read this, okay? They created a full virtual world of the stations to see if the signs are easy to read for disabled people. So you can see these two disabled people here with VR headsets walking around the virtual world, which presumably would have meant that they contracted out to a media company to design all of this. You can just build the signs. You can just build the sign, build a prototype sign and go,
does this work?
Does this work? Does this work? Does this work? Does this...
Done.
No, millions of pounds had to go into this. Billions of pounds. And of course, if you look further into the document, you get the obligatory giving money to some random charity that you never asked them to give money to in the first place. So compared to all the waste, giving £68,000 to a charity for English hostile pensioners is peanuts, because it turns out they're giving almost 68 grand to the Bengali Workers Association.
Why?
How does this help?
What does
train get built?
This is all taxpayer, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it's all taxpayer.
So we're inadvertently sending money to a charity that we never agreed to.
Mm-hmm.
That's like me taking your wallet and just taking it away with me and just donating it to the Holiday Inn next door.
Some would call that theft.
I would call that theft.
Yeah, some would call that theft.
Taxation.
The government says that it's absolutely legal because they say it's legal. And if you don't think it's legal, sorry, that's illegal. And on that basis, just to cap all of this off, we found what is actually the true political theory. You've heard of John Lockean liberalism, Robert Filmer's absolute kingship, all of that out the window. The one true political theory is you pay tax to the government gives you money to a company to build a railway, that company gives money to a group of Bengali pensioners.
Right.
I think that was in Leviathan by Hobbes, so I'm glad we finally cleared that up. So, yeah, I don't know what else I can add to this. I mean, they're spending your money on building VR train stations so that disabled people can see if they work, when they could just build signs
and show
them. So, yeah, it's a waste of money. It won't ever get built, and it's just there so they can spread money to their patrons.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium contents on the site, such as the book clubs we do, this one on Doug Stokes Against Decolonization. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.